All right. I'm Peter Alessandria, and for the next 90 minutes, I invite you to be bigger than you think you are. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Let's take a look at our agenda for this evening. As usual, we are going to start with some announcements, then we'll do our recommended reading, followed by the affirmation of the day. We'll do some introductions and victories, and then we'll start our review on Chapter 7. Broke it up into two parts. This is actually going to be the most material that we have covered all year. So we got a lot to fit in here. We'll come back, do some Q&A, and then wrap it up by 9 o'clock-ish. Reminder that tonight's workshop is being recorded and will be available on the BeBiggerToday.com website and YouTube channel within the next 48 hours. Please feel free to stop your video and mute your microphone if you do not wish to be seen or heard on the recording. Be Bigger Than You Think You Are second edition author-signed paperbacks are now available on my website, BeBiggerToday.com/book, on sale for a limited time only, $21.95. Check it out. While you're there, check out my New York City photo book, New York Cityscapes. This is the ultimate, penultimate New York City photo book, collaboration between myself and 6 other New York City area photographers. We each have our own unique take on what makes the Big Apple so great. So check it out, on sale for $16.95, BeBiggerToday.com/bookstore. And while you're there, check out some hats and t-shirts. We have merch, save 20%, use the discount code MERCH20 at BeBiggerToday.com/merch. You can also check out my original art and photography, my original landscape, cityscape, and abstract images. These are professionally framed, gallery-wrapped canvas prints available at BeBiggerToday.com/art-photography. And here's our commercial for tonight. Peter's photos and abstract designs are uniquely beautiful, one-of-a-kind works of art. These gallery-wrapped canvas prints are set in a contemporary shadow box floating frame and will enhance the beauty of any home or office. Available in 4 different sizes, each piece is professionally framed and comes complete and ready to hang. Frames are available in your choice of black, white, or brown, and each is signed by the artist. Peter's original art and photography will make a great gift for a client, for yourself, or someone you love. Order yours today. And moving along here. All right, we have more merch, NYC refrigerator magnets. These are my original photos on New York City refrigerator magnets. Great collection. They make the perfect complement to any kitchen or office kitchen or any place where you might use a refrigerator magnet. Check it out at BeBiggerToday.com/merch. And currently my most recent TV interview, this was an interview I did for Biz TV, America Trends on Biz TV. Go to my website, BeBiggerToday.com, go look on the homepage, you'll see this photo. Click on this and it will take you directly to the YouTube video. It's about 16 minutes. We had a great conversation about overcoming our limiting thoughts and beliefs and being bigger than we think we are. Thank you to everybody who was able to make the webinar last week. Really appreciate it. We had a great conversation. Actually, it was a webinar with Q&A following. So this should be available in the next week or two. So I will be, it's not currently available, but once it's up, I will let you guys know. I'll put it out in the email. And I'm available for one-on-one coaching and or corporate consulting. If you're a creative person, an artist, photographer, writer, or if you have a business or work for a company and would like me to come in and speak to your management team, your sales team on how they can be bigger than they think they are, reach out to me through the website. We'll set that up. And finally, in lieu of direct donations to support the workshop, I'm suggesting people purchase a copy of the second edition. You can get yours on Amazon or from my website. And of course, if you like the book, please tell your friends and leave a positive 5-star review on Amazon. And thank you guys so much for your support. All right, so our recommended reading for tonight. So this was a book that I first heard of maybe 25 years ago, and it's kind of been in the back of my mind ever since, and I finally got to it last week. So I did. There's some audiobook copies on YouTube you can check out. The paperback is available wherever you get paperbacks, Amazon. You can get used copies, all that. This book was actually, I don't know if it was 1993. I think it was actually published in 1973. I may have gotten that date wrong. So Handbook to Higher Consciousness by Ken Keyes Jr. Ken was a very interesting guy. We're actually going to talk about him in a minute. But I think he wrote like 15 books, and he impacted a lot of people in his life. In fact, why don't we switch over here? So Ken Keyes Jr. was an American personal growth author and lecturer and the creator of the Living Love Method. He wrote 15 books on personal growth and social consciousness issues. At the age of 25, Keyes contracted polio and became paralyzed in his legs and hands. His paralysis developed into quadriplegia, and he was confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Despite his health status, his work touched the lives of millions of people around the world. When Ken died, he was lauded by Desmond Tutu, Gerald Jampolsky, Ram Dass, Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra, Terry Cole Whitaker, John Bradshaw, and others. So, this guy really made an impact on a lot of people's lives. And again, I had heard about him. I had heard about his work many years ago. I'd heard about this book. I'm glad I finally got a chance to pick it up and listen to it. And it's kind of fitting that it's our last formal workshop for this go-around to recommend this to you guys. It's a pretty easy read. I think it's about 250 pages. Again, if you get the audiobook, you can listen at your leisure. One of the main things that he talks about in the book is he talks a lot about addiction, but it's not what we traditionally think of as addiction. He has a very broad definition of addictive behaviors, and it's basically anything that results in suffering or emotional upset when not satisfied. So it could be we have an addiction to our spouse being on time for things. We could have an addiction to our kids picking up their clothes or whatever. Now, it's not to say that our spouse shouldn't be on time. It's not to say that our kids shouldn't pick up their clothes, but it's when we have a negative emotional reaction, there's emotional upset or suffering, then we've crossed beyond what he calls a preference and moved into an addiction. And then he talks about the 7 centers of consciousness. And what I found very interesting was his discussion of fear, which comes out of the first 3 levels, the lower order centers of consciousness. His discussion of fear parallels a lot of what I talk about in chapter 4, that in fact, fear had an evolutionary value for us as a species. When you're living in the jungle, it's good to be alert to potential dangers. But he also questions, like I do, whether or not that's serving us at this point in our development, in our evolution. The 7 centers of consciousness, the 3 lower ones are protection, security, pleasure, sensation, power, and control. And these roughly, although he doesn't actually draw the direct analogy, these sound very familiar or resonant with the 7 chakra centers that you guys may be familiar with. So the 3 lower orders, and then the higher orders are love, acceptance, oneness, and unity. What he calls a cornucopia or abundance consciousness. Then he talks about the conscious consciousness, which is the impersonal witness. It's kind of like our intellectual, so it's a higher level than our intellectual consciousness. And then the 7th center for him is the cosmic or God consciousness. So Handbook of Higher Consciousness, I definitely suggest checking this out. Again, you can find it pretty much anywhere where you find books. Yeah, love to know what you guys think about it. So check it out. Now we'll move on to the quote of the day. And again, this is by Ken Keyes. This is his quote from the book. And of course, it resonates with what we've been saying for the last year. We see things not as they are, but as we are. So for me, this speaks to, again, what I have been talking about from the beginning, that we perceive ourselves through the lens, through this internal filter that we have of our self-image. And that self-image is usually based on our past experiences. And so what happens is information from the outside world comes in, passes through this filter, and what happens is we give the event or situation a meaning. And that meaning is what we react to. We're not actually reacting to what's happening outside of us. And that's another way of saying that we have a subjective interpretation of the world, and we react to other people, situations, and events based on our subjective interpretation. We're not actually seeing the world as it is. So for me, when he says we see things not as they are, but as we are, he's basically saying the same thing. He's saying that it's our subjective perception, our subjective interpretation, and the meaning that we give the world, which forms our perceptions. It forms the basis for our reacting or responding to life. So I offer that to you guys, something to think about. We see things not as they are, but as we are. All right, so let's move on here. This is the portion of the workshop where we do introductions and victories. It's an opportunity for anybody who's new to introduce themselves, or for people to share a victory or celebration from the past week. So who would like to kick us off with a victory or celebration or introduction? Somebody has to unmute.
Barbara?
I will go with Barbara. She was the first to unmute.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Victory, whatever, I'm just moving along. I know I complain about the job a lot. I had to put in full time because, the person's not there, and I was off on Friday and I was off on Monday. So I felt very overwhelmed, with the bulletin and all that kind of stuff. It has to be in by Wednesday at 4:00, which is today, 20 pages later. I knew I would get it done, and all because of my new way of thinking. I knew I would get it done. It's just painful. Life sometimes is just like that. It's a lot of work. I didn't have anybody there helping. So it's all the interruptions and craziness, and then have to get that done. It's funny, I guess. You would say, but I never had it. You would say to yourself, what's the alternative? Of course I'm going to get it done. I'm not going to not get it done. So, they can't be without it. So it was done, a lot of work. I'm still sweating, and, but with the right frame of mind. So I am working it. I don't
Great.
know, you said something before. And it is funny to say that. Okay, it's not necessarily the situations out there. It's all about, what's inside. But there are times, Peter, when a lot of things are going on the outside. So you got to pay attention to that. Those are the things that are happening. Yes, we got to stay calm and feel good about ourselves. And I think I'm there. I don't, people know that I'm stressed or whatever, but they react to me differently. I will say that. So there's the victory. They react to me differently than they used to. So I'm sure it all has to do with what I'm doing. Thank you.
So that's great. So let's get a woohoo.
Yes,
good job.
Woohoo. Yep.
And I would venture to guess that they're reacting differently to you because you're reacting differently to the situation.
Right. I did lose it. I lost it maybe twice. And, and if you lose it, then you look at, maybe the person that's near you and stuff like that. You go, oh, I don't want to put my stress on them, or, so I felt bad about that. So I let all that go. And we have a new business manager, and today was her first day, but I know her. Okay. And something was asked of me and I don't have time to do it. And she just took it upon herself. She took her little computer, put it on her lap, and she says, I know what he wants. Bing, bing, bing. She did it and she gave it to me. Now, wasn't that wonderful?
Wow.
I know.
So, I mean, that's great. You have a new ally in the office.
Right. We
Somebody
got a business.
who's really willing to help out.
Yes. Yes. And, I will, well, I'm not going to be talking to you, but can you imagine the person that I have a hard time with wasn't there this week? I would love to see the dynamics of this very lovely person who likes to help to this other person who we know about her. So we'll see how the dynamics go. I would like to just stay neutral in the middle.
Well, it's good. That's probably a good way to handle a situation.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not suggesting that we ignore the situation or that we ignore what's going on around us. I'm also not suggesting that a lot of stuff doesn't happen at once. The proverbial stuff hitting the fan. I mean, obviously, we've all had that experience.
Yeah.
My point is the way we feel about it is about us.
Okay.
It's not the way we feel about it is not what's going on out there. The way we feel about it is what's going on in here. And we get to control this. We get to choose this. We have the power to direct our thinking, to change our attitude. And ultimately, for me, it's this perception of how do I see myself? The situation is never the problem. The problem is always how I see myself in that situation. And even the biggest challenge, I can handle even the biggest challenge when I see myself as being able to handle it. The problem is when I don't see myself as being able to handle it. The problem is when I have those limiting thoughts and beliefs that says, I can't do this. This is going to be painful. This is not going to work out. I don't know what I'm doing. They're going to yell at me. It's going to be stressful. Those are the thoughts that create the feelings. The situation doesn't make us feel anything. Remember, no one and nothing makes us feel anything.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So when I spend the time, when the stuff isn't hitting the fan, when I spend the time to work on my idea about myself, to have a new self-image, to have more empowering, positive thoughts and beliefs about myself, then when the stuff does hit the fan, I'm better able to handle it.
Okay. Yep.
Makes sense?
Yes, it does. It does.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I probably could have worked on that a tad more today. I knew the shit was going to hit the fan in a way. I knew I was going to have to do this and X, Y, and Z was going to happen. And, it is a little stressful, but, I knew that that's the way it was going to be. And like I said, it was okay. It was a victory. So thanks.
Good. Yeah. Excellent.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Who else? Anybody else want to share a victory? Say hello.
I do.
Go ahead, Didi.
And thank you so much, Barbara, for your victory. Hello, everybody. I just want to brag because I didn't get this on recording last week because we had to postpone for the storm. Hope everybody's okay. That I actually was able to respond to an email to a family member who I had a riff with and after more than a year and some months of not communicating in any way with that person, and my ability to just respond, it gave me relief, and it proved to me that this stuff works. So that's that. And I spent the most of my day with my mother, and she and I did not get into one yelling match. So that's kind of like, woohoo! That's like the big woohoo! And was so much more fun just to take her to the doctor. She can barely walk, and it's all very interesting. So I heard what you said. We have a lot to cover. I had to drop off to help Cynthia in, so I hope she says hello. Okay, thanks, you guys. Pass.
Thanks, Didi. Good job. Woohoo! Good work.
Thank you.
I really love that when I hear you guys applying what we're talking about in your own life. That's the payoff for me. I'm not doing this for the money. Maybe one day. Actually, one day I will be, but for now, it's great that you guys are able to have those victories and apply what we're covering here. So I love to hear that. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, let's launch into it then. So we are reviewing the second part of chapter 7. I hope we can finish it all tonight, guys. I hope my voice holds out. I mean, there's a lot here. So we're going to jump right in. In chapter 7, I talked about resentment. And we first talked about it in chapter 6, and then I brought it up again in chapter 7. So resentment is a passive form of anger where we harbor negative feelings within rather than outwardly expressing them. And it's based on a perception of ourselves as a victim. Now, when I did my step work in 12-step programs, I chose to look at resentment as a character defect. And what I did is I had this inventory process that I do on the 6th step, and I kind of break it down. And, you know, the fact that I'm a resentful person at times doesn't make me a bad person. It's my way of trying to take care of myself. It's my way of trying to protect myself. But it's in a dysfunctional way, but for a long time, it was all I had. So when I really dug into it, I found that for me, resentment means I have not done what I needed to do to take care of myself in that situation. And now I'm blaming somebody else for that. And the anger I think I feel towards them is really misdirected anger that I feel towards myself. Now, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says resentment is the #1 offender. Pia Melody, who writes a lot about codependency, she says resentment is victim anger. So I know now when I'm in resentment, when I feel resentful, I'm in victim mode. And it almost always means that I haven't done what I needed to do to take care of myself. So that's kind of the tip off for me. So I want to look at my part in all these situations that challenge me. So forgiveness. So to overlook or look past. To overlook or look past is actually one of the definitions of forgiveness in A Course in Miracles. And I'm suggesting that overlooking or looking past other people's harmful or inappropriate behavior is something that's actually good for us. We strive to see the good in them irrespective of what they've done. It's helpful to overlook and then, okay, so we strive to see the good in them irrespective of what they've done. This doesn't mean we don't take care of ourselves, doesn't mean we don't set boundaries, it doesn't mean we don't remove ourselves from harmful or inappropriate situations. But we do all of that with love rather than resentment, vengeance, anger, and all of that. Now, in general terms, it's my opinion that it's helpful to overlook whatever's upsetting us in life. There is this idea, this metaphysical principle that I found true for me. It's called attention equals intention. So whatever we give our attention to, we're activating in our lives. Another way of saying that is what we resist persists. If you don't feed it, it won't grow. And the last one, this is from Law of Attraction. We get what we think about whether we want it or not. These ideas all stand for the proposition that we play a role in what comes to us in life. So again, if what I resist persists, when I give something that I think I don't want, something that's offensive to me, that's upsetting me, or that I feel upset about, the more attention I give to that, the more I feed that and the more it grows in my life. Now you say, well, how could I ever solve a problem in my life? And so the answer is we focus on the solution, not the problem. So if we have an issue with a family member, instead of ruminating over that, feeling resentful over what they said or what they did, we focus on the solution. So part of the solution for me, #1 is we'll talk about this in a minute, is to look at my part in the situation. And then the second part of the solution is to communicate in some way, set a boundary, communicate that, and then negotiate, try to find a solution. So we pay attention not to the problem, but to the solution. All right. Number 30 on my list, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. Obviously, this is a quote from the Bible. The thing I want to start out by saying is we're not condoning violence or making excuses for somebody else's harmful or inappropriate behavior. Yet I believe in our normal, healthy state as human beings, it's not in our nature to knowingly want to hurt another person. As they say in 12-step programs, hurt people hurt people. See, sane, healthy people, they find peaceful ways to resolve their differences because conflicts come up. Conflicts come up all the time. Disputes come up all the time. The problem is not that there's a conflict. The problem is we don't know how to resolve it peacefully. We don't know how to deal with it without getting resentful or angry. We don't know how to not take things personally. We don't know how to not judge other people that we disagree with, make them wrong, attack them. So the conflict is not the problem. The problem is how we handle it. And when I have to hurt somebody, when I have to attack somebody, when I have to make somebody wrong because I don't agree with them or because of what I'm afraid they're going to do to me, I'm not in my right mind. I'm reacting. I'm not responding. I'm in a reactive state. I'm afraid. I'm anxious. And I'm trying desperately to resolve the situation because I feel powerless. So hurt people. And then, we talked earlier in earlier chapters about the effect our childhood experiences have on our self-image, who we think we are, how we see ourselves. And I say even a normal childhood can create reactive personalities. If you add physical or emotional abuse or being raised in an environment dominated by addiction, mental illness, or religious indoctrination, and even seemingly normal, well-intentioned people can do crazy things to themselves and others. Plato is said to have said way back in ancient Greece, be kind, for everyone is fighting the same hard battle. If you look around you and look past the facade, in my experience at least, we're all struggling with the same things. We all have the same issues or similar issues. We have different ways of dealing with it, but a lot of us, share in this idea that life is a struggle because, life can be a struggle. Life can be hard. So having that understanding, having that compassion for other people and saying, wow, maybe they're not attacking me personally. Maybe they're just completely out of their mind because they're anxious, they're afraid, they're upset, and they don't know how else to take care of themselves. Doesn't make it right when they do something harmful. We're not making excuses. But when we begin to come at it from this place of compassion and understanding, we're much more likely to get a positive and peaceful resolution of our differences. This second quote is from Tomorrow's God by Neil Donald Walsh. He says, when somebody is harming us or threatening to harm us, ask this question: what hurts you so much that you feel you have to hurt me to heal it? This can stop the train. This can get somebody thinking, wow, what am I doing? Why am I hurting this person? Is this really who I want to be in this situation? Take care of ourselves first. Somebody's got a gun in our face. We want to be careful about how we address them. And we can do whatever we need to do to take care of ourselves. But if it's appropriate, if it's safe and appropriate, try and ask that question. What hurts you so much that you feel you have to hurt me to heal it? And really want to know, really want to find out what's running that person in that moment, and then see if I can be helpful. Number 36, this is me from my work. If we saw the world the way they see the world, and if we saw ourselves the way they see themselves, then we'd probably be doing the exact same thing they're doing, and that makes us the same as them. So again, I don't know if I know, I think I mentioned it in the next slide or two, but the idea is that we're all driven by this survival instinct. We do everything we do to feel better. We talked about that in chapter 5. But underneath that, what feels good, what feels better is surviving. So we have this, we do what we do because we think we need to do it to survive and or to be happy. That's what's driving all of us. So we make different choices around that, but we all share that common motivation. And when I can begin to recognize that, number one, I stop making what other people do personal. I don't take it personally. I don't make it about me. And then I can have some compassion and understanding, and I may even be able to be helpful to help them achieve their goal without hurting me, without, injuring me or whatever the effect of their behavior was going to be on me. all attacks are a call for love. This comes from A Course in Miracles. As I said earlier, sane, healthy people don't attack others. They find peaceful ways to resolve their differences. And I say here, what if we could shift our thinking to say that when one person attacks another, that first person is really calling out for help? What if we could see their lashing out as being driven by fear and maybe even as an act of desperation? This again is having some compassion and understanding. We still take care of ourselves. We still can do whatever we need to do to protect ourselves and to be safe. But once we've done that, now is there another way to look at this? Can I see them differently? Can I see their attack as a call for help? Now, as I say below here, the problem is we usually feel justified in hurting those who we think have harmed us. And we're so certain about that we're right and they're wrong that we never question the basis for our actions. So another question to ask when you're confronted with somebody else's crazy, harmful, inappropriate behavior, and you want to lash out at them, you want to make them wrong, would I accuse myself of doing this? All right, true forgiveness. So this forgiveness stuff is rad. For many of us, it's a call to live life in an entirely different way. True forgiveness is when the other person has done something wrong, inappropriate, or even harmful, and we forgive them anyway. We don't give up our right to protect ourselves. We don't become a doormat and let other people walk all over us. We don't put ourselves in harm's way. And we take care of ourselves from a place of love, from a place of compassion and understanding. We don't rely on the anger, the resentment, the judgment, the vengeance to take care of ourselves. We have a different way of taking care of ourselves now. So we can still set boundaries, but we do it with love. We can still take care of ourselves, but we do it with compassion and understanding for the other person. And as I say here, I'm not angry. This is really important for me to remember. I'm not angry because of what they did. I'm angry because I'm afraid, and I'm afraid because of how I see myself. So we talked about this in chapter 6, I think, that fear always precedes anger. What that means is if I'm angry, I'm really afraid. And so it's very helpful for me to look at that and address the fear as opposed to why I think I'm angry. And when I communicate to another person that I'm afraid versus when I yell at them and I attack them because I'm angry, they have a much different response. When I attack somebody, when I make them wrong, when I'm trying to hurt them, then they either shut down or they lash out. They attack me back. Whereas if I communicate to somebody that I'm afraid, I'm concerned, I'm worried, now I'm not attacking them. And now they can actually listen and help me find a solution. All right, so in all these situations where we experience conflict or negative emotions towards others, it's very helpful to ask this question. What was my part in this? How did I contribute to the situation? Because when we're run by our ego and our egoic thinking, we don't want to look at our part. We only want to blame them. We only want to talk about what they did to us. We're not interested in taking responsibility for our part. Yet we can't have a true forgiveness, true healing. We can't really come together unless we're willing to take responsibility for our part. So these are some of the things that I've noticed in my own life when I had the wherewithal to stop and say, what was my part in this? Number one, I ignored warning signs. Number two, I had unreasonable expectations. Number three, I failed to speak up for myself. Number four, I was dishonest. And number five, perhaps most importantly, I didn't respect my own boundaries. Remember, when we talked about boundaries a couple of weeks ago, we said boundaries are the primary way we take care of ourselves in our relationships with other people, but our boundaries are for us. Our boundaries are not for other people. So we have to respect our own boundaries. We have to enforce our boundaries with us. It's actually insane to expect other people to respect our boundaries. The sum total of 1 through 5 is that I wasn't doing what I needed to do to take care of myself in the relationship, And then when things didn't work out, I blame them. Number 42. So we've alluded to this a lot over the course of the workshop, the difference between hurt and harm. Now, this becomes important when we make an amends or apologize for our part in the situation. Harm is the unjust diminishment of someone's life experience. It's more of an objective assessment of what we've done. It has an objective effect on the other person. I'll give an example in a minute. Hurt is much more subjective determination. It's usually based on how we see ourselves, and it's the result of the meaning that we give the situation. So the difference between hurt and harm is an objective, as I said, kind of quantifiable thing. So let's say we have a contract and I break the contract. That results in the unjust diminishment of your life experience. If we have a contractual relationship or any kind of an agreement, and you have certain expectations, maybe you've invested money based on our agreement or whatever. If I break that contract, then chances are pretty good that I've unjustly diminished your life experience. If I steal from you, if I steal something that belongs to you, if I attack you, if I harm you physically, I've diminished your life experience. Hurt, on the other hand, is, hurt, we're talking about feelings, and my feelings are always about me. They're not about the other person. We said in chapter 4, other people don't have the power to hurt us unless we give them that power. Remember, true power is the ability to consciously choose and or change our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, and nobody can choose my thoughts, feelings, words, or actions for me. So they don't have the power to hurt me. And so we're accountable to other people for our harmful behaviors, and other people are accountable to us for their harmful behaviors, but we're never responsible for someone else's hurt feelings. And the opposite is also true. No one else is responsible for our feelings. I go into much more detail about this in chapter 7 in the book. I'll be the first to admit, it's not always black and white. And often we're better off apologizing, often acknowledging the effect that we've had on somebody else, acknowledging their feelings about it. It's probably better to err on that side than to not say anything at all, to not apologize at all. But the flip side is, what I did, the flip side of that is compulsively apologizing. I'm always saying I'm sorry. I'm always trying to make somebody else feel better because I think I've upset them. Compulsively apologizing is a coping mechanism. It's a way I try to feel safe by controlling someone else's reactions. My subconscious thought is that if I apologize, they won't be upset, and then I can feel safe. It also stems from my negative core belief that I'm bad or wrong. This meant it was my fault if somebody else was upset, so I had better apologize. Now, that's all, again, for me at least, that's number one, codependent. Number two, that's the mind of a child. It's, the little kid that feels guilty, that feels responsible when the parent is upset, when the adults are upset for whatever reason. So we only want to apologize or make an amends for actual harms done. So again, if I've done something harmful, if I've unjustly diminished your life experience, I make an amends for that. I take responsibility for that, and I do whatever I need to do to set that right. On the other hand, again, it's not black and white, but I'm not responsible for somebody else's hurt feelings. If somebody says to me, "You hurt my feelings," I say, "I didn't hurt your feelings. I said what I said, and I did what I did. You interpreted it the way you interpreted it. And that's why you feel the way you feel." And the same is true when I feel hurt. All right, we're going to take our break. So if you're new here, I'm going to play a song, 5 minutes, Love My Life by Robbie Williams. The lyrics will be on screen. You can sing along at home. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, I can't actually play the song for copyright issues. And we'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, so talking about amends, apologizing, making an amends for our part in things. Remember, we're not taking responsibility for somebody else's part. We're only taking responsibility for our part. And in my own experience, again, a lot of this came out of my 12-step work. Steps 8 and 9 are about, and 10 are about making an amends. When I went to another person to make an amends for my part in the situation, I usually got one of 3 responses. The first one is thank you so much. I really appreciate that. The second one was, oh, you don't have to apologize. That was nothing. I don't even remember that. Heard that a lot. And then the third one, it didn't happen as often, but occasionally somebody would say, go F yourself. I'm not interested in your apologies. So the main thing to keep in mind is that not everyone is going to appreciate or acknowledge an apology or an amends. And it's my position that an apology is an expression of who we want to be in that situation. Now, it also has the potential to lessen our guilt, but we can't make an amends just for that reason. Now, for me, the bottom line of all of that is that I make an apology or an amends for myself. It's an expression of who I want to be, because I can't control how the other person is going to receive my amends or my apology. As you saw in the example there, 2 out of the 3 responses, they didn't even feel it was warranted or they weren't interested. So if I can't control that, I must be doing it for myself. Now, I noticed that, again, in my own life, my own experiences, that an amends has the potential to mend a relationship, to fix a broken relationship. But I don't know how it's going to go. And the other person, as I say, may not welcome it. They may not even feel it's warranted. So I make an amends or an apology for myself as an expression of who I want to be in that situation. It's not but it's not a selfish thing. See, the minute I start doing it selfishly, then I'm causing more harm, actually. So that's why, as I talk about in the book, didn't have a chance to put it all on the slide here. When somebody lets us know that our apology or our amends is unwelcome, we stop. Okay. Also, as people familiar with the 12 steps know, step 9 says we make a direct amends, except when to do so would injure them or others. So we want to be really careful that our amends process or apologizing doesn't harm somebody else, a third party. All right. Forgiveness as a decision. So forgiveness is a conscious choice to not take things personally, to let go of anger, rage, and resentments, to accept rather than judge, and so on. We decide to overlook someone else's mistakes and imperfections. Now, again, we do all of this while taking care of ourselves. We don't put ourselves in harmful situations with harmful people. We don't let people walk all over us. And we can choose to overlook, so we're no longer taking their actions personally. We no longer become, remember, the ego is, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to me? Don't you know who I am? How could you be so mean to me? And we start taking it personally. We make it about us. What other people do is never about us. It's never personal, even if it's meant to be personal. It's always about them. And the same is true of us. When I'm attacking somebody else, even though I think it's about them, it's really about me. So we learn to not take this stuff personally. We learn to not respond with anger, rage, and resentment. And we look at these attacks. We look at these attacks as a call for love. We choose to see ourselves in a way that says no one and nothing has the power to hurt us. We stop seeing ourselves as victims and other people as victimizers. We may choose to hold other people accountable for their actions, but we do so without anger or vengeance. Now, when we're in a relationship with someone and we want to forgive that person, and it's kind of an ongoing relationship, it could be somebody we work with, somebody we live with, family, whatever. There are 3 things that can undermine our efforts to do everything I just said, to forgive them. So we've talked about this a little bit in the past. We certainly talked about it during chapter 7, but so the first one is no more drama. The second one is a loss of identity. And the third one is expecting others to change now that we've forgiven them. So no more drama. We talked about this, I think it was 2 weeks ago. You know, when we relate to other people with anger, with defensiveness, with feeling like a victim, there are certain stress hormones that are released in the body. Adrenaline, cortisol, neurotransmitters, serotonin or whatever, dopamine. And all of that happens in reaction to our conflicts, to our drama with other people, to the point where we can actually become addicted to the drama. Our body craves these chemicals, these hormones, these stress hormones. You know, Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe talks a lot about this. He's like, you know, the body's saying, hey, just give me a little more self-pity. Just give me a little more anger. You know, it's like we crave the feelings that come from these hormones to the point where we can actually become addicted to the drama. So if forgiving someone means I give up the drama, if forgiving someone means I no longer relate to them with anger or resentment, if forgiving someone means I can no longer feel sorry for myself and take what they're doing personally, there may actually be these physiological cravings for the conflict, for the drama, and that can undermine my attempts to forgive. Number 2 is a loss of identity. You know, if I've spent the last 40 years relating to a certain person or certain people in my life as an angry person, as a victim, with self-pity, feel sorry for me, if forgiveness means I have to let all of that go, so I can no longer relate to them with anger, self-pity, whatever, you know, what we do is we identify ourselves with our personality traits. I'm an angry person. That's who I am. That's how I see myself. And it must be the way they see me well because they react to me the way they react to an angry person. Well, if I'm no longer angry at them because I've forgiven them, all of a sudden, I don't know who I am in that relationship. I don't know how to relate to them. That loss of a sense of identity creates discomfort, and it can easily propel us back to our old ways of being in that situation. Number 3 is expecting other people to change now that I've forgiven them. Now, as we're going to talk about in a minute, when we do forgiveness, the other person usually doesn't even know that we're forgiving them. Yet my insanity is, well, I've forgiven them, so now they should be different. Now they should stop doing things that annoy me. Now they should be nicer to me. And they don't even know that I've forgiven them. That's insane. And so what I want to do is go back to my old ways because they haven't changed. What I need to do is have the conversation with them. What I need to do is set the boundaries. What I need to do is negotiate a new way of interacting with them. So the fact that I've forgiven somebody doesn't mean they're going to change. They may still be as annoying as ever. Now, my experience is actually when I truly forgive someone, the relationship does change. But it may not. And so the point is, you know, be aware of that. Just because I think I've forgiven someone doesn't mean they're going to change. And now there's a simple way to know if we've actually forgiven someone. And that is, are we still upset by that person? So I've had this experience, maybe you guys have had it, that when I truly forgive someone and they do something that used to annoy me, it doesn't annoy me anymore. It doesn't upset me, at least not the way it used to. Or if they're doing something inappropriate, I can set the boundary, I can have a conversation with them without feeling anger, without feeling resentful, without feeling like a victim. So I still take care of myself, but I don't have to do it from a place of being upset or angry. All right, so in the first edition, there were 4 forgiveness processes. Now in the second edition, there's like 7 processes. I'm only going to highlight in a minute the new ones from the second edition. But these processes, so it's very important to keep in mind that forgiveness is something we do by ourselves, for ourselves. The other person's participation is not required and may in fact be counterproductive. Now, again, this is because, as we talked about in chapter 6, Everybody thinks they're right. See, the other person may not agree with us that they need to be forgiven for what they've done. They may feel justified in what they did. In fact, it's probably almost a sure bet that they felt like they were doing what they needed to do in that situation. So telling somebody that we're forgiving them, especially if they haven't acknowledged that they've done something wrong, well, we may be setting ourselves up there. May not get the response that we think we're going to get, that we want. So forgiveness is something we do by ourselves, for ourselves. The other person's involvement is not necessary. Now, an exception to that is when the other person acknowledges their wrongdoing and asks to be forgiven. That happens a lot less often than you think, than the ego would have us believe, but it can happen. But when this happens, now we're faced with two possible dilemmas. The first is we want to be sure that the other person is sincere in their contrition. So some people apologize just to kind of manipulate. They apologize to appease us, but they don't really have an intention of changing. And then second, we should be mindful of whether or not we're withholding forgiveness to hurt or punish the other person. I can see in my own life, I have to show mercy if I want to receive it. So just kind of keep that in mind. But the more common case is we're forgiving them and they don't even know that they've done something wrong. So here are a couple of the new forgiveness processes. Again, you find these in the second edition. These are both from the book that I highlighted a few months ago, The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. I've adapted them. I've actually changed them around quite a bit, but that was the inspiration for these. So the first part is, name a person, I fully and freely forgive you. Let there be perfect harmony and understanding and purest love between us. Now, we're not saying this out loud. We're saying this within our own mind. I mean, you can say it out loud, but we're not saying it to the other person. This is something we do by ourselves, for ourselves. I completely look past, and forgive every negative thing associated with the matter in question, and I release you emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. I choose to see the best in you and the best in me. I am free, you are free, and from this day on, we can each move forward unencumbered by the anger, hurt, pain, and resentments of the past. Now, that's the long form. If you want a shorter one, that's a little easier to remember. Say when somebody cuts you off on the highway, or something ticks you off, say this to yourself. You can say it out loud if you're in the car alone. I've done this on Route 80 in New Jersey. Somebody cuts me off. Peace be with you. I release you in light and love. I give you all the blessings of life which are mine to give. I am free, you are free, and it's a wonderful feeling. As opposed to saying, you effing a-hole, learn how to drive. And then being angry, being resentful, and then going home and being angry and resentful to the people in my life, or my pets, or whatever it is. We do forgiveness because it's good for us. Releasing anger, releasing resentment, freeing ourselves from the emotional burden of that is good for us. So if I'm still upset at you for what you did last week, last month, or last year, I'm not doing anything to you, but I'm burdening myself with those negative emotions. I'm ruminating over, how could you do that to me? And all the time and energy I spend being annoyed and ruminating is time and energy that I need to move my life forward. Yet I'm giving it away to that situation. And you probably don't even know that I'm mad at you. And you probably, if you do, you probably don't even care. So forgiving others frees us. It's good for us. We take care of ourselves. We do whatever we need to do to take care of ourselves, and then we let that stuff go. Two more processes. These were actually in the first edition. Photographic memory. We take a photo of that person as a young child, And then we have a dialogue in our head with that picture, with the child inside the adult that we're trying to forgive. I did this. This came up with somebody, when I was writing the first edition, this came up. And it just spontaneously came to me that this was a way for me to free myself from being upset with somebody else by seeing them as a little kid, by seeing them as an innocent child. And actually, I asked the kid, I said, why was the adult doing this? And it actually came through to me. I got this kind of awareness, this knowingness, and it was like, all of a sudden, I understood why they did what they did. I didn't agree with it, but at least I understood why they did what they did, and it freed me. It was, it was freeing. I was able to release a lot of the negative emotions. And then I have talked about this a couple of times, reclaiming our inner child. I have a photo of little Peter. So I was probably about 9 or 10. So reclaiming our inner child, we get a photo of ourselves as a kid and we meditate and begin to form a dialogue, to form a relationship with that kid, because that little kid is still inside us. And it's usually the emotional part of us, and it's usually the part of us that was hurt when we were kids, when we were little. And most of us don't pay much attention to that part of us. So reclaim our inner child, form a relationship, show that kid that they can trust you. Now, true forgiveness means our words and actions are consistent with releasing the other person. We can't say we forgive someone and then a week later attack them for leaving the cap off the toothpaste. True forgiveness means changing our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions toward that person to coincide with forgiveness. Now, we can still say, gosh, honey, I love you, and I love that you brush your teeth every night. But is there any way that we can work it out where you remember to put the cap on the toothpaste? We can joke about it. We can negotiate. We can express our feelings. We can have the conversation, but it's not attacking them. It's not making them wrong. It's not, how many times do I have to tell you, what the hell is wrong with you? Why do you always da, 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 da? In that case, I'm just blaming the other person for how I feel. It's not forgiveness. My opinion, attack, revenge, retaliation, etc., are all expressions of weakness. Whether as individuals or nations, they're usually the result of seeing ourselves as powerless. Restraint from retaliation or attack, on the other hand, is an expression of true power and thus inner strength. It's much easier, if you think about it, it's much easier to lash out at those who we think have done us harm than it is to stop and inquire what drove them to hurt us in the first place, to want to hurt us in the first place. Again, we don't put ourselves in harm's way. We don't have to jump into the middle of an inappropriate situation. But if it is appropriate, we can stop and have a conversation. What hurts you so much that you feel you have to hurt me to heal it? How can I help you? Because you're acting crazy right now. Compassion, forgiveness, and understanding require a lot more fortitude and courage, in my opinion, than fighting back. For this reason, love, not attack, is the truest measure of our power and strength in the world. Now, again, I mention this only because I think a lot of us, individually and as a nation, we confuse force, we confuse violence, we confuse attack with strength. And in my opinion, and I know other people feel differently, it's okay to defend ourselves, but we want to do it from a place of understanding, a place of compassion, a place of helping, if we can, the other person. If it's appropriate. It's not always appropriate. I totally give you that. And sometimes it's just, we got to do what we got to do to take care of ourselves, protect ourselves. And in most of our lives, we're not confronted with that on a regular basis. The things that we're confronted with are much more subtle, And so is there a way to resolve our differences in my opinion, showing compassion, showing understanding, showing love takes a lot more strength, a lot more fortitude than attacking somebody, than gossiping about them, than judging them and making them wrong for their mistakes, taking not pride, taking joy in their mistakes. When somebody falls on their face and we kick them when they're down, that's easy. Anybody can do that. But if we see them as a competitor or even as an enemy, if we stop and help them get up, it takes a lot more strength, a lot more courage, a lot more fortitude to do that, in my opinion. Forgiveness is the key to happiness. If we're mired in anger or resentment, the odds we'll have a happy day are not so good. Forgiveness frees us from anger, fear, resentment, judgment, and so on. Thus, like being happy for no reason, we want to forgive for no reason because it's good for us. I can't be happy if I'm mired, if I'm stuck in feelings of annoyance. How could you do this to me? If I'm stuck in my resentment, if I'm stuck in feeling sorry for myself, I cannot feel happy. They're mutually exclusive. Yet actually, now that I think about it, being more happy in life is a really good reason to forgive. This means instead of forgiving for no good reason, we're forgiving for a really good reason. Forgiveness changes who we are. When we change how we see ourselves, it eventually changes who we are in the world. Everything we think, feel, say, and do realigns with our primary notions about ourselves. The reason the saints and the prophets were so good at forgiving is they knew who they really were. There was no question as to their own innocence, divinity, and goodness. Once we know and fully embrace that the same is true for us, forgiveness will be easy. Like the saints and prophets, we too are innocent, divine, and really, really good. Yes, we do bad things, but it doesn't change the fact that we're good people. Our true self is wholly adorable and totally lovable. Moreover, no one and nothing can harm our true self in any way. Imagine how our lives will be different when we all walk around knowing that. So that is it, folks. That's the review for chapter 7. We have a few more minutes. I'm going to open it up. I want to hear what you guys think about all that. If you have any questions. And then we'll take our final break, come back. I want to talk about what we're going to do next week if we want to meet next week and all that. So anybody want to chime in on any of this, any of the stuff that we've talked about, not taking things personally, forgiving others, hurt versus harm, all of that, changing how we see ourselves. Go ahead, Didi.
Thanks. Hi, Peter. Hi, everybody. You said I can't make amends for the sole purpose of relieving my guilt. And I'm just like, well, then why am I going to do it? Why would I bother? So there's that. And then all that was very powerful. And I have to listen and re-listen. So thank you for doing the review. I'll be going back to the original processes and then adding the new ones, because I'm here specifically for the to become that forgive without ceasing person. And I think my question is, since I'm so human and I did have all these opportunities to get me here, I forget pretty easily. I got to be reminded, well, I don't know how it's going to be tomorrow, but in the past, I have to really stay present and kind of immerse myself with the information and the people, or I forget. When I get around crazy people, I just feel like I so quickly can just kind of jump right in the boxing ring and and want to win. So I don't know what to say except what else is there besides relieving guilt, and what's your main thing that you do that takes the least amount of time and energy that reminds you who you really are, Pat?
Well, that's the key, actually, what you just said. That's it. Who do you think you are? How do you see yourself? That was the very first question that we started this process with 60 weeks ago. And it's the beginning of the book. It actually was the title of the book at one point. Who do you think you are? How do you see yourself? That's what we need to change. See, when I change who I think I am, how I see myself, it does not matter what they do. I'm not saying I don't take care of myself. I'm not saying I don't set boundaries and all that other stuff, which is actually really important. I have to know how to do that before I get in the ring with the crazy people. Because if I haven't mastered all that, it's going to make it very difficult to not get sucked back into the craziness. So time, learning how to do that, practice, get an action partner, practice setting boundaries, practice speaking up for yourself in a way that's not attacking somebody else or making somebody else wrong. Repetition is the key, guys. I mean, I listen to audiobooks over and over and over again. I don't watch TV. When I have an opportunity, it's always, okay, what can I do to remind myself? I listen to the affirmation meditations over and over and over again. And I have 5 or 6 ones that I haven't shared with you guys. I listen to those before, the last hour before I go to bed. It's always something positive, reinforcing repetition, to remind myself. And again, I want to do all that when there's nobody crazy around. So when I do get back into the craziness, I'm ready, because otherwise I'm floundering. I don't want to do that. Now, in terms of the guilt, right, being released from the guilt. Number one, for me, guilt is just another word for self-hatred. Now, there is what some people call a natural emotion, this emotion of shame. And, when I've done something that's harmed another person, I do have that feeling of shame. I have that feeling. But what I'm transforming that to is awareness. See, I don't need to feel bad about myself to make things right. I don't need to beat myself up to take responsibility. I don't need to have to see myself as a bad person to make an amends. We talked about in chapter, I think it was this chapter, awareness, accountability, and action. All right, we want to be aware of what we've done, the effect that it has on ourselves and other people. We want to become willing to be accountable if we've done something harmful. And then we want to get into action. The action part is making the amends, setting things right. Now, why do I make the amends? Because it's an expression, it's a statement of who I want to be in my life. And I'm taking my power back, because when I feel bad about myself, I'm giving my power away to those feelings. When I have, when I have guilt or shame, I say in maybe it's this chapter, I don't care what anybody says, feeling bad about ourselves never makes us better people. We don't have to feel bad about ourselves to do the right thing. Doing the right thing becomes an expression of who we are. And the amazing thing is, when I take responsibility and I do the right thing, other people start doing that back to me. Other people will start being accountable for what they've done, and I don't have to say anything. And it's happened. And it's like, wow, very interesting. And when I work it backwards, I see, wow, well, so I took responsibility there. I made an amends for that. I changed how I did this. And now I don't even have to say anything, and they're shifting their behavior. Doesn't always work that way, and we can't do it for that reason. So does that answer your question, Dee Dee?
Yeah, it's a process. I think where I need to spend some time is understanding the difference between when I just think I had bad behavior or when I actually did harm, because I suspect there's clarity that needs to happen there. Maybe I could work with you on that in the future.
So yeah, that's the difference between hurt and harm. So when I harm somebody, when I unjustly diminish their life experience in an objective way, that's when I take responsibility. As a codependent, I always think if somebody else is upset, it must be my fault. And that's not true. In fact, it's never true. Some people are just upset, and it's not my fault. So I'm never responsible for how somebody else feels. They're never responsible for how I feel. I'm always accountable for my harmful behavior, and hopefully they're accountable for their harmful behavior. Again, it's not always black and white. And sometimes, making an apology when it's in the middle is probably better than not saying anything, especially if we have an ongoing relationship with that person. But for me, I know I go to the other extreme, which is I compulsively apologize. I'm always saying I'm sorry for stuff that has nothing to do with me. That doesn't serve me.
Which chapter was the description of actually diminishing somebody's life experience?
Unjust diminishment, that's in chapter 7.
Okay.
Unjust diminishment of someone's life experience. Again, if I steal from you, if I harm you physically, some objective way that I have diminished your life experience. And I say unjust because if somebody attacks me first and I'm just defending myself, then it's not an unjust diminishment. I'm justified in what I'm doing there. But as opposed to, somebody feels hurt. They feel, the example I give in the book is my 5-year-old niece, she's now 7, but when she was 5, she started telling everybody whenever they did something that she didn't like, she would say, "Oh, you hurt my feelings." Now, in her mind, I get it, because in her mind, they said something, she feels bad afterwards. So it must be what they did that caused her to feel the way she feels. And so me being me, one day when she said that, I said to her, "Sweetheart, I understand you're not happy about what so-and-so said or did, but they don't make you feel anything. If you feel upset, it's because you're choosing to feel upset." Now, she stopped what she was doing. She looked at me she stopped for a minute, and then she looked at me like I was crazy, and then went back to fighting with her brother, and that was it. So I'm hoping one day when she's older, she reads the book and she gets it. But the point is, we get into this thing where, it's your fault that I feel the way I feel, and that's just not true. I don't feel good because of what you did, and I don't feel bad because of what you did. I feel good or bad because of how I see myself in the situation, and the meaning that I give the situation is based not on what you said or did, but how I see myself in relation to it. This is sometimes subtle. It's sometimes, especially in the heat of the moment, it's so hard to remember that. I still struggle with this, and I wrote the damn book. But I don't see any other way to do it, because until I take full responsibility for my emotional state, remember, if I don't control my emotions control me. And nobody else is responsible for how I feel. Good, Dee Dee? Got it? Good. Who else wants to chime in on our discussion?
Wow.
Barb,
I know. Yes, I feel overwhelmed. Well, I guess you knew that. It was like bam, 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 bam. All of it good, but totally overwhelmed. So thank you. I'm like, everything you're saying or the things I was reading, I was like, okay, remember that. Okay, do that. Okay, remember that. And we know that when you're getting all that information, you only can, absorb? What do you absorb? 20% of it or something, or remember 20% of it? So it was like, whoa, I'm overwhelmed. I hope, you gave such great information that, like, say tomorrow, I'm hoping that some of that I, heard and understood, I'm able to use tomorrow. That's the only way I could put it. It'll make a happier life. I understand forgiveness. Forgiveness creates happiness. Oh my God. Who would have known? Okay, but that's only one thing compared to all the things you said. So I'm not saying overwhelmed in a bad way. That was a lot of information and you knew it. And I'm really hoping that, I can use some of it tomorrow. I said that already. Okay.
All right. So here's a suggestion. Instead of hoping, trust.
Okay.
Trust that you heard what you needed to hear, and it will come to you in the moment that you need it.
And that's a belief, isn't it?
Yeah, trust, belief, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, I know that's true. You've already talked about how you're different.
Yes.
Now, the other thing to remember is repetition. So I'm going to suggest again, and it's up to you, but all the videos, all the workshops are available online. You can watch this starting in maybe tomorrow night or certainly by the weekend. It'll be on YouTube. You can just go and click on it and then do whatever you got to do and just listen. So you can hear it again and again and again. I mean, I'm telling you, Course in Miracles is 1,200 pages long.
Yeah.
I've read that book at least 7 or 8 times cover to cover. And then I've listened to it probably 25 or 30 times. And it takes like 15 hours, 20 hours to listen to it. So it's 1,200 pages. My book is 340 actually. It's a lot of information. So, it's just what do you choose to do with your time? How important is it to you? Don't overwhelm yourself and don't beat yourself up if you don't listen to it again or watch it again. And just know that that's a tool. Repetition, 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 repetition. It's how a great, golfer or baseball player or whatever, basketball player, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. I mean, these guys were the top of their game. And even, 15 years into a pro career, they're spending all their extra time practicing free throws. They're the first person to practice. They're the last person to leave. And these guys are the best. And they started playing basketball in grade school, probably. So for 35, 40 years, they're practicing free throws. They're practicing layups. They're practicing. Musicians, piano players, whatever. So if you want to achieve, a higher level of competence in any area of our lives, we got to be an active participant in that. And repetition is the way to do it, in my opinion. Conversations with God. There's 9 books in that series. 9 books, and they average about 300 pages a book. I've read them cover to cover multiple times. I don't know how many times. I've listened to them over and over and over again to the point where I can recite them as the words come up. I know what the next sentence is. Is that crazy? Maybe. I don't know. But I'm telling you, all that preparation is the only reason I can sit here today and say what I said to you guys. The only reason I could put it in this book, and the only reason I can begin to practice it in my own life. So you have resources, it just depends on how bad you want it, and how bad I want it depends on how much I believe in myself. Do I really believe I can change? And it's available. So, but I have to believe that it's possible. See, I'm not going to put the effort in. I'm not going to watch the videos over and over again. I'm not going to read the book over and over again. I'm not going to do the written exercises at the end of each chapter if I don't think it's possible to change. Now, a great motivation for all of this stuff is I'm worth it. I love myself enough that I'm going to be like Michael Jordan and I'm going to practice free throws every night before I go to bed or whatever. I love myself enough. I believe in myself enough to do all of this. I care about myself enough because if I don't like myself, see, when I didn't like myself, I didn't want to do any of this. All I wanted to do was make everybody else wrong or feel jealous. This was really big for me. When I started photography, I was just jealous of everybody who had some kind of success, and I would judge them, and I was, whatever. Because I didn't love myself. I didn't like myself enough to do what it takes to be successful as a photographer back then. And that's why I talk about why it's so important to learn to love ourselves. Because when I love myself, I'm going to do whatever it takes to have a better life, to improve my relationships with myself and with other people, to improve my earning potential, to improve my family relationships. But when I don't like myself, I'm not going to do any of that. And I'm just going to point fingers at everybody else and say, it's your fault that my life isn't working. It's your fault that we don't get along at Thanksgiving dinner. It's your fault that, I am the way I am. I'm just projecting my self-hatred out onto everybody else and blaming them for my problems.
I get it.
So I hope that you love yourself, you find a way to love yourself enough that you will do whatever it takes to get to wherever you want to be.
Okay, for everybody. Okay, great.
And that's how we make the biggest contribution.
Uh-huh.
See, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I wasn't, I was, maybe it's further back, maybe 15 years ago, but I wasn't interested in helping other people. I was interested in myself.
Okay, I agree, but I agree. Now you're laughing. I do that. Mommy kidding. No, I'm not kidding.
I believe in you, but that's not going to do you any good unless you believe in yourself.
Exactly.
That's true for all of us.
And I believe in you. How about I believed in you and now you believe in yourself, and that's a wonderful thing. Okay.
It's a great thing to believe in other people and to recognize that until they believe in themselves, it's, I don't know if that's entirely true. I mean, we can love someone so much in a healthy way that eventually they catch on. I believe that. But maybe they don't, and we don't have any control over that. We don't have power over other people.
Right.
But we can inspire them.
I know, by example.
Yeah, in fact, that's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Is to live in a certain way, live in a way where we really do love ourselves.
Right. Okay, thank you, Peter.
All right, great. Thank you, Barb. Anybody else? All right, we'll play the song. We'll come back for our final goodbyes. All right, so that is it for tonight. So if you guys are interested, I mentioned that next week we can just do like a 1 hour AMA, Ask Me Anything. It'd be an opportunity for any final thoughts, questions, whatever. I'm willing to do that if you guys want to do that. And so we won't have any formal material or anything like that. So just come with questions or whatever you want to share, whatever's completed, to complete the process for you guys. I would also like to offer you guys a certificate of participation, like a little diploma. If you're interested in that, I'm happy to, I'll actually put that in the email for next week. So I will send that out to you guys as well. There are some people who can't make the workshop, but who watch the videos. So I want to make that available to anybody who's interested. And then I really don't know what's going to be next. I love this time with you guys. Maybe we'll come back in a month or two. On the other hand, I don't know if I could do another 60 weeks. Although quite honestly, I've thought about redoing the first couple of months, because when I was just kind of finding my way then, and they could be improved. On the other hand, like everything else, they're perfect just the way they are. So we'll have to see. But so that's my thoughts. Anybody want to say anything about any of that? Ideas?
No, so I understand that next week at this, around 7:30, just come back on and.
I'll send the email like I always do.
Okay.
But yeah, it would be 7:30 to 8:30.
Right.
And it'll just be an opportunity again for whatever.
Okay.
Whatever you guys want to do. Whatever you guys want to
Okay.
talk about.
Okay. All right. I got it. I'll see.
All
I
right,
will.
great. Dee Dee, do you want to say something? You look comfortable.
Thank you. Thank you for your generosity. Yeah, I'm going to take a nap. I work at night. Thanks, everybody.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you for
All right,
your
good night.
generosity and your support. All right, Michelle, did you want to say anything?
I'm okay. Thank you. All
All right, great. All right,
right.
guys. So that's it for this week. Remember, be bigger than you think you are today and every day. Have a great week. I'll see you guys next week. Good night.